U.S. Supreme Court just issued emergency Texas border crisis orders, and it has serious consequences. Not just for Texas, but for the whole country. The stakes are very high. The decisions made today could cause big changes in communities across America. So what will these changes mean for the future of immigration in our country? How will the balance of power between states and the federal government be affected? What other ripple effects could we see from this landmark decision? And what's happening exactly? Well, the US-Mexico border has turned into a major hotspot of crisis, drawing our attention to some truly staggering statistics that underscore the urgency of the situation we find ourselves in. In just 2023, over 2 million migrants made their way into the United States. This incredible surge isn't just a number on a page. It's a reflection of real human lives tangled in a complex mix of desperation, policy missteps, and ongoing legal disputes. People embark on this treacherous journey even with their young children, risking everything to flee violence and poverty in their homeland. And after weeks of exhausting travel, they finally reach the border, only to confront overcrowded shelters and scant resources. This is the dire situation many face, and a significant amount of people are trying to cross the US border through Texas. Now, policymakers and everyone involved are asking the same question: what's going to happen to these people? Well, in order to understand that, we need to talk about one major thing: Texas versus the Biden administration. But before we dive into the details, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss videos like this. The battleground. Now, let's dive into what's happening with Texas Senate Bill 4, or SB 4 in short, a game changer in how the Lone Star State handles immigration. When this law was signed into effect last December 2023, it marked a pivotal moment by making it a crime to enter Texas illegally. We're not talking about small issues here. SB 4 effectively created 3 new offenses: illegal entry, illegal re-entry, and refusal to return to your home country. And trust me, the penalties are no joke. If someone gets caught for the first time, they could find themselves staring down up to 6 months in jail. But hold on, it gets even more serious. Repeat offenders could face a staggering 20 years behind bars. The kicker: if you're convicted, say goodbye, because you could be deported straight from Texas right after you serve your time. This means even if you're in the middle of applying for asylum or trying to sort out family visas, that might not save you. Now, let me tell you about what the Texas Senate Bill 4 empowers local law enforcement to do. Under this law, police officers can detain anyone they suspect of entering Texas without proper documentation. This isn't just casual suspicion. They've got a legal mandate to comply with requests from the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement. What this means for local jurisdictions is that they can't just decide to go rogue and limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. But there's a catch: judges who may not have a solid grip on immigration law can issue deportation orders. This raises some real questions about due process and, let's face it, the risk of wrongful deportation. Some immigrants fear returning to their home country because of life-threatening dangers. Can you imagine these people getting deported while waiting for that crucial hearing that could determine if they are eligible for protection? Critics are sounding the alarm. Some are even claiming that SB 4 opens the door to racial profiling. It gives police the green light to stop and question individuals based solely on their appearance or ethnicity, which has sent waves of fear through immigrant communities all over Texas. Families are feeling the crunch, often choosing to stay indoors rather than risk an uncomfortable encounter with law enforcement. See, it seems like Texas officials are brimming with confidence as they assert that the Texas Senate Bill 4 is a faithful mirror of federal immigration law. They argue that it's essential to tackle what they see as a total failure by the federal government to secure the border. According to them, SB 4 equips local law enforcement with vital tools to handle the ongoing immigration crisis. Governor Greg Abbott isn't shy about voicing his frustrations regarding how the Biden administration is managing immigration issues. He claims that their federal policies have led to an increase in illegal crossings and rising crime rates throughout Texas. To bolster their case, Texas is leaning on the Second Amendment ruling from U.S. versus Rahimi, which granted certain powers to state-level restrictions on firearms. Texas officials point to this decision as evidence that they have the right to strengthen state control over immigration enforcement, directly challenging any claims made by the Biden administration regarding federal preemption. However, legal experts are raising eyebrows, arguing that comparing immigration law to gun rights won't fly in court due to the inherently different nature of these areas. Which brings us to the next question: What's the Biden administration's perspective? On the flip side, the Biden administration is determined to challenge the Texas Senate Bill 4 in court. They argue that this law oversteps the federal government's role in immigration enforcement, claiming it's blatantly unconstitutional. At the core of their argument is the assertion that SB 4 undermines the federal government's authority in regulating immigration and poses serious risks to civil rights. The Biden administration's legal strategy hinges on asserting federal supremacy over immigration matters. They contend that the Texas Senate Bill 4 is preempted by existing federal laws, particularly those governing immigration enforcement. They cite specific statutes that grant exclusive immigration authority to federal agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement. From this perspective, laws like SB 4 may be entirely unconstitutional. The administration is also drawing on a recent 8th Circuit decision that invalidated Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act. The key emphasis in that ruling was that states cannot enact laws that clash with established federal regulations, an argument that aligns perfectly with their stance on Texas's new law. The legal battles between Texas and the Biden administration have been nothing short of intense, with a flurry of conflicting court rulings. Initially, a district judge in Austin blocked SB 4, but then the United States Supreme Court temporarily allowed it before the 5th Circuit Court of Appeals stepped in once again to halt its enforcement. The 5th Circuit has become a battleground, with rulings that seem to contradict each other. For instance, one decision permits limited enforcement of the Texas Senate Bill 4, while another swiftly reinstates injunctions against it. This legal tug of war is not only affecting how the law is implemented, but also shaping public perception of both the states and federal government's approaches to immigration. Public opinion on the matter is anything but unified. Supporters of the Texas Senate Bill 4 believe it's crucial for maintaining public safety and asserting state rights, while opponents argue that it's a license for discrimination and a violation of immigrants' human rights. The stakes are high. If SB 4 is upheld, it could set a concerning precedent for other states wanting to enact similar immigration control measures. This could erode federal authority over immigration policy, an area traditionally seen as the federal government's responsibility. Such a shift could reverberate not only in Texas, but potentially across the nation. Historically, immigration policy has been firmly in the federal government's domain, but laws like SB 4 are challenging this established norm, placing state rights at the forefront of immigration enforcement. The outcome of this legal battle could redefine the dynamics between state governance and federal oversight in this critical policy area, with far-reaching implications. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room: the emergency order. Let's take a closer look at a major turning point in the ongoing debate about immigration law: the emergency order issued by the U.S. Supreme Court in March 2024, specifically relating to Texas Senate Bill 4. This piece of legislation has sparked a heated legal battle as it criminalizes the unauthorized entry of migrants into Texas. Now, this decision isn't just another court ruling. It signifies a pivotal moment in the ongoing tug of war between the state of Texas and the Biden administration over who really calls the shots on immigration policy. The emergency order served as a temporary measure, essentially hitting pause while further review and deliberation took place. This means that, for the time being, SB 4 wasn't fully enforced, but its shadow loomed large over ongoing legal debates and the broader immigration landscape across the nation. Let me explain. With this ruling, the Supreme Court highlighted the contentious and divided nature of immigration enforcement in the U.S., traditionally dominated by federal authority. By issuing the emergency order, the court indicated there were significant concerns regarding the constitutionality of SB 4, especially in terms of where state power ends and federal control begins. Legal experts were quick to point out that this case could set a precedent that might reshape how states act in matters of immigration enforcement moving forward. During the oral arguments, it was fascinating to see both sides present their cases. Texas argued fiercely that the Texas Senate Bill 4 was essential to safeguarding its borders from what they described as an invasion. To support their claim, they invoked Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 of the United States Constitution, asserting their right to self-defense against unauthorized crossings. Governor Greg Abbott made it a point to emphasize that federal inaction created a situation where Texas needed to step in, framing SB 4 as a legitimate exercise of Texas's sovereignty. On the flip side, the Biden administration argued that immigration enforcement is solidly a federal responsibility. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar pointed out that letting states create their own rules on immigration could result in a tangled mess of conflicting regulations, ultimately hindering national policy coherence and possibly violating international agreements. As these discussions unfolded, it became clear that the ideological divide among justices was pronounced. This division mirrors broader societal tensions surrounding immigration policy in the US, as the justices grapple with the tricky balance between states' rights and federal authority. What does this all mean for Texas? Well, the repercussions of the Supreme Court's decision could be monumental. If SB 4 is upheld, Texas may feel empowered to take even stronger measures to control its borders, which could result in increased confrontations between state law enforcement and federal agents. Picture this scenario: heightened tensions at the border could escalate into physical confrontations or complicated legal disputes over jurisdiction. Local law enforcement agencies in Texas are no strangers to preparation. They've been ramping up training and resources dedicated to enforcing the Texas Senate Bill 4. But here's the catch: this focus on enforcing immigration laws raises serious concerns about community safety and public trust. Critics are worried that such stringent measures could lead to racial profiling and divert crucial resources away from other pressing public safety issues. Historically, we can look back on precedents that highlight the potential for conflict between state and federal authorities over immigration enforcement. Think about Arizona's controversial SB 1070 law from 2010, which resulted in notable clashes between state law enforcement and federal agencies, leading to a whirlwind of lawsuits and public protests. If SB 4 continues to move forward, we may see similar patterns of volatility emerge in Texas, creating a charged environment along the border. From an economic perspective, communities close to the Texas-Mexico border are already feeling the pinch caused by heightened enforcement measures. Local businesses that rely heavily on cross-border trade might suffer from reduced customer traffic as migrants are deterred from attempting crossings due to increased security measures. A report from Human Rights Watch has pointed out that Operation Lone Star, aimed at enforcing these laws, has led to dangerous conditions for migrants, particularly those attempting to cross through remote areas. This situation is exacerbating humanitarian crises and putting additional strain on local resources. Responses from local communities are varied and complex. Some residents firmly believe in stricter enforcement to ensure safety and security, while others view these measures as draconian, harmful to vulnerable populations seeking refuge or better opportunities in life. This divide has sparked protests and advocacy efforts aimed at influencing both local and state policies, creating a visible tension that underscores the complexity of the issue. The nationwide impact. Now let's zoom out a little. The emergency order from the Supreme Court concerning the Texas Senate Bill 4 could set a significant precedent that other states might follow if they want to enact similar border control measures. If upheld, it could inspire states like Florida or Arizona to push through their own restrictive immigration laws, all under the pretext of self-defense or asserting state sovereignty. Legal experts are ringing alarm bells, warning that such developments could lead to a fragmented approach to immigration policy across the nation, making it harder for the federal government to establish coherent national strategies. States that find themselves in similar situations may react in kind by either filing their own lawsuits or enacting legislation that mirrors Texas's aggressive approach. Take Alabama and Georgia, for instance. They've tried to pass strict immigration laws in the past, but faced immediate legal challenges centered around federal preemption principles. If Texas's legal battles yield favorable outcomes for them, it could serve as a guide for how other states navigate similar conflicts. At the same time, advocacy groups are gearing up for a fight in response to these developments. Organizations focused on immigrant rights are preparing to launch legal challenges against states that attempt to impose their own immigration policies. They argue that allowing states like Texas to dictate immigration enforcement not only undermines federal authority, but also jeopardizes essential human rights protections for migrants. Another critical consequence to watch is how this ruling might further polarize the national debate surrounding immigration policy. As states tread into more aggressive territory in terms of border control, public discourse is expected to become even more heated. Advocacy groups advocating for both sides of the issue will ramp up their campaigns, possibly entrenching divisions within communities and across political arenas even further. This raises one major question: what happens to the people caught in the middle of this war? The immigrants don't have a clue about their future. They are just living to exist at this point, but we need to talk about this in detail, so let's do that. The human cost. Often immigrants' journey through Central America is filled with threats from gangs and the danger of human trafficking. At the US-Mexico border, people think that they feel protected until they are swiftly sent back to the foreign city of Juarez. People say that they return them to a country that they don't even know. There are lots of stories like this. Fleeing violent oppression, families like Caesar and Carolina risk everything for a chance at safety. Caesar, a Nicaraguan taxi driver, became a target after joining protests against the government. With their home under siege, the family had no choice but to leave. When they started circling our house, I knew it was time to go, Caesar recalls. But when they got here, things were complicated to say the least. And another Honduran mother, Cynthia, faced similar heartbreak. After a grueling trek with her son, their court hearing was canceled. I had no answer for him when he asked why others crossed freely while they remained trapped. The desperation is palpable, as Brazilian father Carlo even considered sending his daughters across alone. These stories reveal the immense physical and emotional toll of migration. Life in border towns such as Juarez and El Paso is changing dramatically due to the ongoing crisis. Local residents are often caught in a tug of war between feeling compassion for migrants and grappling with frustration over the strain this influx places on community resources. Adriana Jasso, a dedicated volunteer at a migrant aid center in San Diego, shares her community's response to the crisis. We set up tents with food and supplies for those arriving after long journeys. But as the number of migrants swells, local resources can struggle to keep up. Jim Desmond, a member of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, expressed concern about the impact of this influx on local residents, stating, "To have tourists come and see people sleeping at our airport is not the impression we want to give." With federal funding falling short of addressing rising demands, community leaders are left scrambling to find solutions amid growing tensions that seem to surface daily. Business owners are not immune to the effects of this ongoing crisis either. Maria, who runs a modest restaurant in El Paso, opened up about her experience. Some days are slow because people are worried about safety. While some locals have stepped up to support migrants through generous donations and volunteer work, others feel overwhelmed by the noticeable shifts in their community dynamics. Cultural shifts are also noticeable. Longtime residents express anxiety about how changing demographics might affect local traditions and social ties. A recent survey revealed that 78% of American adults view the influx of migrants as either a crisis or a significant problem. This clearly reflects widespread anxiety over immigration policies and their effects on communities nationwide. Law enforcement and humanitarian workers. Those working on the front lines, Border Patrol agents, law enforcement officers, and humanitarian workers encounter unique challenges as they navigate an intricate landscape filled with moral quandaries. Many agents report feeling torn between the necessity to enforce immigration laws and their innate desire to respond to humanitarian needs. An anonymous Border Patrol agent shared, "Every day I see families who are desperate for help. It's hard not to feel compassion." Humanitarian workers such as Laura, who lends her time volunteering at shelters along the border, provide critical support, yet they often find themselves frustrated by bureaucratic hurdles that complicate their great intentions. "We want to help these people get back on their feet," she expressed, "but there are so many obstacles. Legal paperwork takes time, and resources are limited." The ethical dilemmas faced by law enforcement can be incredibly profound. Agents frequently encounter families fleeing violence who desperately need protection but might not meet the stringent legal criteria for receiving asylum under current policies. This reality heightens tensions between federal enforcement actions and the local humanitarian efforts dedicated to aiding these vulnerable families. As migration patterns continue to shift, recent data revealing a steep drop in encounters at the US-Mexico border after record highs earlier this year. Those working on both sides must quickly adapt to the rapidly changing circumstances. Ongoing debates about immigration policy will keep influencing border experiences, impacting everything from operational protocols for law enforcement agencies to resource allocation for humanitarian organizations. The human cost of the border crisis is glaringly evident through the heartbreaking personal stories that reveal the emotional struggles faced by migrants seeking safety and a stable life. Border communities are left to grapple with these shifts as local residents express complex feelings of compassion mixed with concern over how their identities are evolving amid the legal battles swirling around immigration policy. In the meantime, those on the front lines wrestle with ethical dilemmas that challenge their roles as both enforcers and helpers within an incredibly complicated system. So what's the future of the border? Right now, things are pretty heated. Multiple significant lawsuits are moving through the courts, and the implications are immense for both state and federal immigration policies. The recent emergency order from the Supreme Court concerning the Texas Senate Bill 4 has turned the spotlight on this issue, laying the groundwork for a series of upcoming court dates that could seriously shape the future of immigration law, not just in Texas, but across the entire nation. And Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is still pushing hard for the law's enforcement, which makes this case particularly crucial. Why? Because it could either affirm Texas's right to create its own immigration laws or reinforce the idea of federal supremacy in immigration matters. Other states are definitely paying attention to how this plays out. If the ruling sides with Texas, we might see a domino effect, with other states feeling emboldened to create their own immigration laws. This could spark a wave of new state-level immigration legislation across the country. But that's not the only legal battle brewing. There's also ongoing litigation tied to the Biden administration's attempts to roll back some of the Trump-era policies like the Migrant Protection Protocols. Remember that? The Migrant Protection Protocols required asylum seekers to hang tight in Mexico while waiting for their claims to be processed. The Supreme Court's 2022 ruling that allowed the Biden administration to put an end to the Migrant Protection Protocols didn't really settle things down. States like Texas and Missouri are still challenging these changes, claiming that abandoning such policies only makes the border crisis worse while imposing extra costs on them. As this legal drama unfolds, it will definitely have a huge impact on how both Texas and the federal government deal with border security moving forward. And let's talk politics. As we inch closer to the upcoming elections, the interplay between immigration policy and political maneuvering is really heating up. The border crisis has become a hot topic, with candidates from both major parties seizing the opportunity to rally their supporters. For many Republicans, the dialogue often swirls around themes of border security and criticizing the perceived failures of the Biden administration. Former President Donald Trump has particularly stirred the pot by suggesting that unauthorized migrants will be somehow registered to vote in upcoming elections. This claim raises eyebrows, stirring fears of voter fraud among his base, but it's a statement lacking solid evidence behind it. On the flip side, Democrats are focusing on a more compassionate approach, pushing for humane immigration reform while also tackling the root causes of migration. Instead of strict enforcement, they want to foster understanding and provide support. The decisions made by the Supreme Court are likely to play a significant role in the political strategies of candidates. Expect to see candidates pointing to rulings, both positive and negative, to back up their arguments about who has the best plan for managing border security effectively and humanely. But wait, there's more. The changing demographics driven by migration patterns are also shaking up political representation. States that see significant growth in immigrant populations could gain more congressional seats due to increased census counts, which could lead to a major shift in political power dynamics. This raises a pressing question: how will representation be affected if non-citizens are included in the calculations for apportionment? It's a hot topic that has already sparked lively debates among lawmakers. With all these legal challenges and political maneuvers swirling around immigration policy, it's clear that the future of the border remains filled with unanswered questions. The outcomes of these battles will shape not just the laws we live by, but also how we view our communities and fellow citizens as society grapples with these pressing issues. As we watch these developments unfold, it's impossible not to wonder, what will the future hold for immigration policy in the US? What's your thoughts on this? Let's know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.